Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Weekend Extra. Joe here with Ryan. Excited. Man, we've been in such a good series, Ryan. I mean, it's like rough and painful and good.
It is.
Untamed is in some ways the perfect title for this series. Love diving into that. And you got into anger tonight, which I love because, honestly, this is one of the things that, especially before Christ, and then even still, it rises up every once in a while. I have to really, figure out how to put the reins on. But anger was something that was a big deal, and I like to blame it on my Italian heritage,
Right.
like blood boil type of thing. But no matter where it comes from, God's got some pretty specific parameters to put on that. And I thought if you didn't see the message this weekend, make sure you go back. If for nothing else, the chart. The chart is gold, man. It really, really is good. Shows, the human and the righteous anger and how to do those and what not to do. So good and so helpful.
Good.
We can't just rehash the sermon right here, but kind of a good framework. But as you talked through human anger, right? And I think a lot of people can certainly understand that. I think a lot of us can understand where you were headed with that when it comes to like this one-time event made me angry. How should I respond to that? But Ryan, what happens when that event happens over and over and over and over and over and over again? An ex-spouse continues to pour salt in the wound week by week by week by week. Maybe it's even through the custody battle, or you just have a jerk of a boss, like this pastor that I work for.
That guy.
No, but like what happens when it's so repetitive? Do you find yourself every week you just have to repeat, refresh, rinse, repeat, kind of thing? Like what do we do with that?
Yeah, it's a perfectly legitimate question, because you're right. If it's a one-time thing and if it's not huge or life-altering, I can probably acknowledge it, reset my expectations, embrace gentleness. Mm-hmm. When it's repeated, when it's toxic, like when the whole relationship is been hurt after hurt after hurt, I actually think this conversation connects to week one. If you missed week one about hurt and forgiveness, I actually think week 3 and week 1 really connect together, because forgiveness, we said, is something that happens in us. Reconciliation is something that happens between us. And this is where I think anger and forgiveness and reconciliation all connect, And I think there's, if I had another conversation I could have, I would think I would love to talk more about boundaries. Like there's a reality that when I forgive you in my heart, and I want to be open to reconciliation, but I can't. It would be irresponsible just to say, here's my entire life in the exact same way. It's on display. You can hurt me in every way that you have before. So I need to understand, what are boundaries for this relationship? Are there some guardrails that we need to have? Right? If you have hurt me, I need to be the one that takes the onus of responsibility and defines what those boundaries are. There's actually a great book called Boundaries by, I think it's Henry Cloud. Mm-hmm. Right? I think there's another author with it. I would highly recommend that, like anybody in that situation, to say, go understand, what are you actually responsible for?
Yeah.
Right? You're responsible for your own heart, your own response. You're not responsible to continually be in a situation that's toxic or abusive. And how does it look, or what does it look like or mean to put boundaries in place? And then, of course, there's some situations that, unfortunately, we are kind of trapped in. If you have an ex that or you have shared custody and they're talking poorly about you to your child, and there's nothing you can do to change that, you have to live in that very difficult situation. And continual forgiveness and continual anger management is probably going to be a part of your life. That's part of the horrific fallout, right, of the marriage breaking down. And what an ugly situation that is. But even understanding boundaries in that situation, I think, would be helpful. It's massive. So forgiveness is critical. Dealing with my anger is critical. How that works in pouring out into reconciliation and the rebuilding of trust is a whole other conversation that really does need explored. The scriptures say, Romans 12 says, as far as it depends on us, be at peace with all men. right? So I want to do everything that I can within my power to pursue peace with people. And there's a reality that I can't break a cycle and remain in it. Right? It takes all of the energy of my life often to break a cycle, and usually there's some distance that's required to break it. Once I have broken that distance from the cycle, then I can understand how do I re-engage that relationship or take it to another level with boundaries in place. Yeah, it's a huge conversation. I mean, and it's one that is really important because we're messy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It feels like if this is something that we should all be processing in our quiet time this week at the latest, like this week.
For sure, for me, yeah.
But if this is something that you feel like you can't get your head wrapped around because you feel like a situation is too complex,
right?
You feel like there's a relationship that's too messy. You don't know how to apply the things that Ryan talked about tonight. Then this is something to, at a minimum, take to your biblical community.
Absolutely,
if you got it. If you don't have it, it's a good reason that we should have it. And but it might even be like take it to a counselor.
Absolutely.
Like get this stuff processed because the owning up of that anger
is huge.
So unhealthy.
And I would say, Joe, to your point, most of the time it's too hard to see straight.
Mm-hmm.
Like our pain has caused us to see all kinds of funny, and we need another set of eyes, usually a skilled pastor or counselor
mm-hmm.
or an experienced biblical community leader to help us get our eyes on it and say, what am I dealing with here? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I love that, Ryan. And while I feel like in some ways we shouldn't wrap this up because there's so much to unpack and get into, what we're really trying to do is just help you guys navigate this. Go back into week one. I think that was a great tie in the double weekend extra here. Mm-hmm. Dive back into this week, hit those scriptures, spend time with Jesus. At the end of the day, he's the solution to all this. So dive into a deeper relationship with him with this. And if we can be a resource to you, dive into it. And honestly as well, as you see other people in your life dealing with these things in their life, be an encourager, be praying for them, try to be those extra set of eyes, and always try to lead them toward that health, that gentleness and the godly perspective and all those things that Ryan talked about this week. It can be a real great way for ministry. All right, guys, this has been the Weekend Extra. It's good stuff. We'll see you next time.